Phillies kicked off Grapefruit League action today, and, well, I would say that expectations aren't great. And it's funny because it's just based on the offseason and the way that October went. When you factor in that the Philadelphia Phillies were a 96-win team last year, one of the best teams in baseball, ran into the eventual World Series champion, the defending World Series champions. They didn't have a good series. The manager did not manage well. I don't think people should be as down on the Phillies as they are, but I also understand why they are. Because the offseason was terrible. Like, no question about it, it was terrible, and it was capped off by letting a $20 million problem walk, which, now I understand. I did the video, and you can watch it up there, where I suggested, look, just keep the guy, and then I had Bob Cooney on, and he said, no, you can't do that. Bob was actually in the locker room, so he would know. I'm going to take my glasses off because there's a horrible glare. Okay, I don't need glasses for this video. Hit thumbs down for that because I can't see without them. So when you factor in all the moves that were made by Dave Dombrowski this offseason, I think he looks at it as we're running it back, but he's going to sell you like, well, we added a 50-home run guy in Kyle Schwarber. No, you didn't add him, you kept him. Well, we added one of the most versatile catchers in baseball. No, you didn't add him, you kept him. You're hoping that guys like Justin Crawford end up prospering and developing into an everyday major league center fielder. And I love the fact that they let Harrison Bader go because it kind of takes away the option that the Phillies would have of slow playing the Justin Crawford era, which I feel like they've done for a good portion of their guys. Like Brandon Marsh is a prime example of that. The guy's like pushing 30 and he just started hitting lefties last year. But when you factor in a lot of the moves that were made, a lot of them are just like, it felt like they were rearranging chairs on the Titanic. There are some moves, however, that I think that they could make that could improve the club so that you're not facing the same result as you were last October. Now, it is worth mentioning that last October they went into it without their ace and Zach Wheeler, who was going to be out for the entire postseason run. Albeit pitching wasn't their issue in October. It certainly was not. But, you need to factor that in. Zach Wheeler will not be making his opening day start. And I worry that, I really worry that they'll give it to Aaron Nola. But they can't. They have to give it to Christopher Sanchez. He finished second in Cy Young, for Christ's sake. So when you look at the first thing that they can do, and I've been begging for this, and I made a video on it. You can watch it up there. They need to add a starting pitcher. Now, they haven't been really good in this department of adding these fringe starters that could also be relievers. The only one that really panned out was Matt Strahm. And if you remember Matt Strahm's first year, they had him pitching as a starter at first because they just didn't have the bodies. And then he, worked his way back to the bullpen, which was his natural kind of position. But whether it be the Chase Andersons, the Joe Rosses of the world, the guys that are kind of brought in that could be those fringe starters, hasn't really worked out. You can even throw Taijuan Walker in there if you want to, although it is worth bringing up that Taijuan Walker has had two pretty okay years and one brutal year. And even that brutal year, I don't think it was as bad as Aaron Nola's year last year. But they need another starter. Like, this is not even a question. They're going into next season with Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Aaron Nola, Jesus Luzardo, and Taijuan Walker. With Zach Wheeler missing opening day, and we don't know, maybe the first month, Andrew Painter will slot in there, but what happens when Zach Wheeler comes back? And giving the nod to Andrew Painter when he didn't exactly earn it in AAA, I think they need another body. Because what I'm worried about is, and you've seen this the past couple off seasons, is Dave Dombrowski goes in with a clear hole in his roster that he will try to patchwork, whether it be, Max Kepler in left, right, center, whatever you want to call it, right? He signs him as an outfielder. Whether it be Jordan Romano last year, who he couldn't quit. The fact that Jordan Romano finished the season in a uniform is a joke. The guy was brutal. But he tries to do these patchwork jobs, and it doesn't pan out. And what ends up happening is he has to go and address it at the trade deadline, where he usually ends up giving up a decent enough prospect to end up facilitating this hole that he didn't address in, January, February, December, October, whatever, November. And I fear that that's what's going to happen. And with starting pitching always being a premium, Yeah, I don't like that. So I'm not asking you to go out there and sign, Lucas Giolito. Although that would be cool. I'm asking you to sign a guy that can just eat up some innings with the fifth starter spot and push Andrew Painter, good veteran presence, guy that can pitch out of the bullpen. The thing is, you have to hit on it. And it's funny that, Dave Dombrowski comes out and says that he doesn't know if Bryce Harper can be elite. Shit, I don't know if Dave Dombrowski can be elite because the moves that he has made as the president of baseball ops under the Phillies. Look, first offseason, I think he did great, right? He signs Kyle Schwarber. I wasn't a fan of that move at the time. Boy, was I wrong. He gives Zach Wheeler the contract extension. But then ever since then, it hasn't. And I have to bring up the Christopher Sanchez extension as well because that was a masterstroke. But ever since then, it's been really, really bad moves that have not worked out, probably capped off by the Aaron Nola 7-year contract when he got scared that the Braves were going to match that or give him more, and it resulted in Ranger Suarez leaving. Does anybody like that Aaron Nola contract right now? I sure as shit don't. I think Aaron Nola will end up bouncing back because if you look at his career numbers, it's an up and down process with him. Last year was the down season. This year should be the up season. And by up, I mean like a 3.5 ERA. But they need another body in there because they don't have one at AAA. They don't have a starter that they can bring up to push anybody. They just need a veteran in there. And at this point, this late in the offseason, it shouldn't be that hard to get somebody from the bargain bin. But you have to, once again, hit on them. I don't want the Chase Andersons. I don't want the Joe Rosses. I want a guy that can be productive. Like, go find a Matt Strahm-esque player. They're out there. He needs to identify it. He's been in baseball how long? He needs to be the guy to identify it. And Caleb Cotham has to have a say in this because he is one of the best pitching coaches in baseball. The other thing is get an extra right-handed hitter. I mean, you don't have a great bench. You're going with cheap options. And you need an extra righty off the bench that can go out there and give you something. Now, the name that's popular is Rhys Hoskins. He wasn't very good last year for Milwaukee, but if he's willing to come off the bench, I'm all for it to give Bryce Harper a spell at first base. It's also, I feel like I keep saying, I've said 15 times in this video, it's also worth mentioning. Bryce Harper, one of the things that I love about him is his versatility and the fact that he is willing to move. And I'm not saying he moves at a first base permanently, but if you bring in a guy like Rhys Hoskins who will give you some pop, what you're able to do there is play Rhys Hoskins at first base, and if Adolis Garcia does not work out, you can put Bryce in right field, although I doubt they do that because for whatever reason, Rob Thompson does not like using guys' versatility. You've got JT Realmuto, who's been run into the ground behind the plate, and he can play first base. He rarely does it under Rob Thompson. It was one of the only things that Joe Girardi actually did better than Rob Thompson was he would actually give JT's knees a day off by playing him at first base. Use the versatility. Use it to your advantage. But one of the things you need, though, is a righty off the bench or just some pop, some outfielder depth. If they can use Bryce Harper in the outfield as a depth piece where it's just to spell guys, it would go, I think, a long way. Because right now, they don't have it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but they let Weston Wilson walk. And I don't think Weston Wilson is all that great. But they don't have depth in the outfield at all. And the biggest thing that they can do to improve this team, and this is as simple as writing it down, is the lineup. This blows my mind that Rob Thompson went on record and saying, yeah, what we're going to do is pretty much the same thing as last year. Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Alec Boehm hitting fourth. I don't despise Alec Boehm at all. I know a lot of fans are ready to just drive him to the airport for like a cheesesteak and a Wawa gift card. I'm not there yet. I think for $10 million, he's a pretty good third baseman. But that is asinine. That is beyond dumb. Beyond dumb. It's almost as dumb as having a 48 home run guy hit leadoff because, quote unquote, he's comfortable. When he was hitting 208. Okay, well, if he's hitting 208 and that's comfort, let's get him uncomfortable. You saw what happened when you just bumped him down one spot in the order. He finished second in the MVP. This is what I don't get about Rob Thompson. And if the move is coming from upstairs, then fine. But Rob Thompson has been in baseball too long to not figure out that if you want to protect Bryce Harper and get him maybe back to the elite status that some people question, maybe he should have protection better than Alec Boehm. And one of the ways to do that is moving Kyle Schwarber behind Bryce Harper. What's one of the biggest issues that we have with Alec Boehm? His ability or his lack of being able to not hit into double plays. The guy consistently double play, double play, double play. Okay, well then take that out of it and swap Alec Bohm and Kyle Schwarber. Have Alec Bohm hit second. His on-base percentage is good. He's basically a doubles hitter anyway. You know, he'll hit you like 20 home runs, but like he's not wowing anybody with power. To have that guy hitting cleanup is a fucking joke. This is not rocket science. I don't want to hear the metrics. I don't want to hear the advanced XVLORP and all that crap. This is as simple as like basic thinking. Big guy hit ball far. Let's try to maximize how many times he could have the ability to have the bases loaded. The idea that Rob Thompson saying, well, I want them hitting the first inning, that's dumb. That's as dumb as saying, well, you know, one of the reasons why we have Kyle Schwarber hitting leadoff is because we like starting the game off 1-0. Yeah, that's cool. You know what's even cooler than that? Starting the game off 3-0, 4-0 even. You know, that's pretty cool too. How many times do we see Kyle Schwarber hit leadoff home runs when he was hitting leadoff, and your immediate thought was like, oh, it was cool, but like it'd be cooler if people were on base. That'd be cool too. This isn't like a situation where you're crumbling the other team. Trust me, the other team is thrilled to see Kyle Schwarber only hit a solo home run. They were terrified last year when they bumped him down one spot to second. Move the guy to cleanup. This is ridiculous. Imagine what we'd be saying if Ryan Howard was hitting second in the lineup back in 2008. It's dumb. You have a guy that can drive in 50 home runs and 140 runs batted in, and you've had him hitting second and first his entire Phillies career. Switch it up. It would go a long way. You could actually have probably won 100 games if you did it that way. You might have been in the number 1 seed. Now, I don't know how much it would have mattered because the Dodgers were a unit. But if you're looking at just simple ways you can improve this Phillies roster, that's the biggest one. Move Kyle Schwarber, the big guy who hits the ball out of the ballpark, move him to cleanup. You're reinventing the wheel. You're trying to be the smartest guy in the room, and it's backfiring on you. And again, if this isn't coming from Rob Thompson, this is coming from upstairs, from the analytical nerds that went to Dartmouth, fine. But tell them to kick rocks and pound sand. It has not worked out. Like, it worked out in the sense of, like, okay, he's productive, but, like, is he going to be worse? Are you going to tell me that Kyle Schwarber's going to be so much worse? All of a sudden, his power just evaporates. All of a sudden, Kyle Schwarber doesn't end up hitting 40 home runs plus? Find that hard to believe. Let me know what your easy solution to improving this roster is right now. Hit thumbs up if you like this video. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. Let me know what you think in the comments section. For comments, I'm probably only going to answer channel members. So support the channel by becoming a channel member. I'd appreciate it. Subscribing is cool too. I am burning pizza right now. I really got to go. But I appreciate you watching, and go Phillies. Allow me to burst your bubble. Maxx Crosby will not be a Philadelphia Eagle. Now, he's a popular name, and he is one that all of the Eagles blogs will be quick to link to the Eagles. All the wannabe insiders that you look at and you go like, you're not even in the locker room. How the fuck do you have any information? They will be quick to say, oh, their sources. Their sources are telling them that the Eagles are poking around. It's one of those situations where they'll say the obvious thing that isn't really news in order to just get retweets and up their own brand. The Eagles poking around on Maxx Crosby doesn't mean that Maxx Crosby will end up in Philadelphia. That is just simply bait for you. It's similar to the Patriots calling the Eagles about A.J. Brown, and people go nuts and they go, oh my God, of course the Patriots are going to call the Eagles on A.J. Brown. If there's a hint of dysfunction, of course the most teams are going to call the Eagles and go, yo, what's the deal with A.J. Brown? And then the Eagles go, yeah, he's not for sale. Click, boom, that's it. Now, in the case of Maxx Crosby, it is different because I do think for the right price he could be had. But the Raiders aren't going to make that known. The Raiders are going to stay in firm leverage position by saying, we're not trading him. We don't want to move on from him. Because why would they? Why would they pivot from that position? Why would they sit there and go, yep, he's on the trade block? He has been the epitome of a good soldier in Oakland and then Vegas. He has been exactly what you want. He's been a guy that goes out there, produces, says all the right things for a shitty team and a shittier organization. He signed a contract extension. So if you're the Raiders and you're thinking of moving on from him, you're not going to publicly say that because you end up losing leverage. Now, what you hope is that Maxx Crosby himself doesn't come out and make it known that he wants a trade a la Myles Garrett. But it's worth noting that when Myles Garrett said he wanted a trade about a year ago, he ends up signing a contract extension, and we've seen what happens. It's unfortunate for him because he's just wasting his career. He's like the defensive Joe Thomas. He'll end up in the Hall of Fame, but he'll do so for a team that never ends up having a chance to win. It's unfortunate. Maxx Crosby, on the other hand, I think it's a different situation because I think he is getting impatient. I think he does want to win. And I think that he would be open to a trade. This is also a player, mind you, that has always spoke glowingly about Philadelphia. He's spoken glowingly about the city, the fan base, the organization. And I think the Eagles are one of the teams that has become a destination for players. I think it's been that way for about 20-something years with Andy Reid. I think players want to play for this organization. I think when they look at this organization, they see a winning organization, especially in the past 8 years with 2 Super Bowls and 3 Super Bowl appearances and all of that. I think this is an enticing place to play. I don't look at Philadelphia like a bottom feeder or a place that you just don't even think about being a destination. I think when it comes to the NFL, yeah, I think players, especially Maxx Crosby, I think would love to be here. So why is he not going to be a Philadelphia Eagle? Why do I think there is zero shot whatsoever that he becomes a Philadelphia Eagle? It's quite simple. They don't have the capital. They do not have the price. Because as I laid out, Maxx Crosby has yet to demand a trade. The Raiders have yet to say that they are going to do anything but keep him. So there is no leverage for the Eagles. There is no leverage for any buyer in a Maxx Crosby sweepstakes because the position that the player and the team are holding is, we want to be together, we want to make this work. And in order to pry that player from said team, you're going to have to pay and overpay. Keep in mind, the price tag for Micah Parsons was huge, and that's a guy that was refusing to report to camp, had made it known that he wanted out, and wasn't under contract. The price tag for Maxx Crosby is probably going to be more, just because of the fact that you have a player that still wants to be there. There is no bad blood. There's no rush for the Raiders to trade him. There was a rush for the Cowboys to trade Micah Parsons because that relationship was completely fractured, and even then, it was a haul. So when you look at what the Eagles have to offer, they have a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and a fifth-round pick. That's it. That's all they have. It's not bad, but it's not enough to get Maxx Crosby. You're going to need multiple day 1 and 2 picks. And they also, mind you, are not in a position to make that kind of trade because they have too many holes to fill. And that's the biggest thing. So, if you were to look at the Eagles, right, and you, hypothetically speaking, you go, okay, we're ready to move on from A.J. Brown. That's stupid, but hey, we're ready to move on from A.J. Brown. We'll take a day 2 pick. And I will remind everybody that we thought the Titans were idiots for trading A.J. Brown for a first-round pick. And now here are the Eagles, who might have to settle for a day 2 pick. No, that ain't worth it. But okay, hypothetically speaking, let's just play in fantasy land. The Eagles trade A.J. Brown for a second-round pick. Now they have a first-round pick, 2 seconds, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Maybe they get a second and a fifth. Maybe they get a second and a sixth. Whatever. It's a day 3 pick. But they have a first, 2 seconds, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Okay. But they also just created a massive hole at wideout. Now, Devontae Smith is incredible, and he's one of the best sure-handed wide receivers. But I still will always look at Devontae Smith as a guy that's a really decent number 1, but he's not a game changer like A.J. Brown. Like, when I look at A.J. Brown, that is a specimen. That is a special, once-in-a-lifetime player. We haven't seen the likes of A.J. Brown since T.O. Like, that's just, production-wise, that is a fact. And Devontae Smith, that's nothing to take away from Devontae Smith. Like, he's great. But I will always look at Devontae Smith being kind of a Robin, whereas I look at A.J. Brown being a Batman. So you're going to need to replace a number 1 wide receiver. Or at worst, you're going to need another number 2 wide receiver if you want to slot Devontae Smith into that number 1 spot. You just created that hole. So now you need a number 1 or number 2, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to die on the hill, but you need a top 2 wide receiver. You need a right guard because Tyler Steen was horrible. Oh, what else do you need? Oh, tight end. You have none. Both your tight ends, Grant Calcaterra, Zachers, jeez, hit thumbs down for that. Dallas Goedert, both free agents. So now you need a tight end. You could probably use defensive end help, I would say, right? You need another outside cornerback to play opposite of Quinyon Mitchell. So there you have 5 immediate needs that if the Eagles took any of those positions in round 1, you would go, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, that fits. Now, I said defensive end. So if you make that trade, take away the defensive end, there's 4 other positions, 4 major key positions that the Eagles still have to fill and 0 draft capital to do it. Because if you're trading for Maxx Crosby, you're doing so using that first-round pick and probably both seconds and future picks as well. So now you're not drafting to the 3rd round. You still have a hole at tight end. You still have another hole at tight end because you don't have any on the roster. Again, both tight ends are free agents. You still have a hole at cornerback outside. You still have a terrible situation at right guard. Oh, and by the way, you don't have a lot of depth at the offensive line anyway. Your right tackle is set to retire in probably the next 2 years. Your left guard is contemplating retirement. And the fact that he was back this year is big news. They don't have it. Like, they simply don't have it. This is very similar to you wanting to fly first class, but you only have economy money. If this were another year, okay, I could see it, yeah. One of the reasons why the Eagles were able to get A.J. Brown was because of the fact that the Titans were in a horrible situation. Cap-wise, they hadn't extended him. They weren't going to extend him. They have terrible ownership. But they also had 3 first-round picks that year. So using one to get A.J. Brown was not a huge deal. It was like, we got 2 more. Now, they ended up trading the one for a future one, and they ended up taking a play, Jordan Davis. But, like, when you have 3 first-round picks, you have a lot to play with. But one of the reasons why A.J. Brown only cost 1 first-round pick was because of the fact that he wasn't signed to an extension. The Eagles were going to have to rework a contract or work out a contract. That's not the case with Maxx Crosby. Maxx Crosby being already signed to a contract, geez, I can't talk, already signed to a contract, that I think gives the Raiders leverage. Because if you're trading for Maxx Crosby, maybe you rework it, but it's already set. So while I would love Maxx Crosby to be an Eagle, who won it? And I would love Myles Garrett to be an Eagle, who won it? And I have the utmost confidence that both players, if they were on the market or if there were hints at being on the market, Howie Roseman is doing what Howie Roseman always does, which is calling the GM and saying, hey, what would it take? You have to make that call. That's your job. But when the price comes up, you go, yeah, that's I'm out. This is like Shark Tank. It's too much. If the Eagles didn't have the holes that they currently have, I'd say, yeah, okay, fine. I'd have no problem basically punting the entire 2026 draft for one player, which is what you'd kind of have to do. But they do have the holes. And they need to fill those holes, especially on the offensive line. Because what I watched last year was one of the reasons why they struggled this past year. You know, that offensive line never being healthy, not being a cohesive unit, not having really any depth at it. So they need to build that depth back up. They need another outside cornerback. They literally have no tight end right now. And you're going to use all your draft capital on Maxx Crosby. It's sexy, no doubt. Like, he's a name, and it'll be a popular move, and people will be cheering. But I think down the line, you'll sit there and you'll go, maybe we could have used that draft capital that we traded for Maxx Crosby somewhere else. And that's why I don't see them doing it. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I know that those wannabe Eagles insiders that have no connection to the team will be very quick to put out the non-information tweet. Oh, my sources are telling me that the Eagles are sniffing around Maxx Crosby. Incredible information. I mean, that is, wow. That is something. Can't wait to hit retweet on that. Don't fall for that bait. Please, God, don't fall for that bait. If it's not coming from one of the actual insiders being like Schefter, Rappaport, Derek Gunn is probably the best on the Eagles beat, it's not believable. So, look, I would love it. I think you would love it. But I'm going to pull my hair out reading the shit. I run an Eagles beat and I have nothing to talk about today. Let's just put out some Maxx Crosby beat. Yeah, I know people will eat that up, and boy, do they. All right, I'm going to go now. Let me know what you guys think about this. If you guys think there is a chance, if I am completely dead wrong or not, leave a comment in the comments section. As far as the comments, there we go. I'm only going to respond to channel members. Support the channel by becoming a channel member. I'd really appreciate it. Also, consider subscribing to the channel. That would go a long way as well. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you hate my face. But let me know what you guys think, and I will be back eventually. I don't know. I don't particularly like talking politics, but in this situation, I feel like I have to because you can't avoid it. The aftermath of what's happened with Team USA Hockey following their gold medal win in Milan and the subsequent aftermath of everything that's happened since then, partying with Kash Patel, taking the presidential call, not standing up for the women's team, and then also going to the White House. This will be a video where I piss off both sides because I feel like I'm going to make you think one thing and then my next point will make you think the other. So if you're left, if you're right, you're probably going to be pissed off one way or the other. At one point, you'll be like, I love this guy. And the next point, you'll be like, fuck this guy. But I need to preface this video by saying I am liberal. I am very liberal. I am a libcuck, soy boy, snowflake, whatever other insult the right wants to throw the left, I am that. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I wouldn't vote for Donald Trump. And I feel like I need to say that point because when I make my next point, it's going to make you think, oh, well, he's just a Donald Trump devotee. And I'm not. But the first point I want to make is your favorite athlete, there's a pretty good chance they're MAGA. There's a pretty good chance. Now, not all of them, obviously, and a lot of them stay out of politics entirely. But just because they're not Joey Bosa walking around the locker room with a red hat doesn't mean they don't align with the president, the MAGA views, and the Republican Party. I mean, on a basic level, Republicans like to give tax credits to the rich, who are rich, pro-athletes. So let's just get that out of the way right now. I think a lot of times people cannot separate art from the artist. One of my favorite bands is a band called Brand New. They were canceled like 10 years ago, and there was a big debate, art versus the artist. Like, can you separate what someone in the band did versus what they are able to create? Athletes, to me, are no different. You know, am I a fan of some of these guys that I was cheering for? Am I a fan of them walking around with a Make America Great Again hat? No, I'm not, but separate the art from the artist, you know what I mean? And that's always kind of been my stance with a lot of this. But let's just break down everything that happened. I don't know what the fuck Kash Patel was doing there. Do I blame the athletes for letting him in? And no, because in that moment, you're in a euphoric state. Nobody wants to be negative. I certainly would have looked over and been like, what the fuck is he doing? Can he leave? This is weird. But whatever. Okay, fine. Moving on, though, to the big controversy of really this whole story, which was the insult to the women's team. And I'm going to be straight with you guys. Like, when I saw the video initially, I didn't think it was a joke. And maybe that's on me. Maybe that's just sheer naivete of knowing who Donald Trump is at this point. This is his second term. We know what he is. Maybe I should have assumed. But initially, upon hearing that I got to tell you, we have to bring the women's team, my initial thought was like, well, yeah. Why wouldn't you bring the women's team? You should bring you should bring every gold medalist to the White House. You should at least invite them. Now, it's up to them if they want to go or not, but yeah, invite them. So upon hearing it the first time, I didn't understand the controversy, honestly. I saw that there was a controversy. I thought it was like, oh, like, fuck these guys and fuck Donald Trump. And then I listened to the clip and I was like, what's the big deal? Because to me, I didn't view it as a joke. It took 2 or 3 times for me to go, oh no, he's putting them down. Like he's joking. And I bring that point up because I wonder how many of the hockey players in the room did not realize that it was a joke. Obviously, the two guys that said, the one guy said absolutely, the other guy started chanting 2 for 2. Like, they didn't think it was a joke. And I think at this point, we all recognize that Trump was joking. It wasn't funny. It was insulting. But I do wonder how many of them heard that statement on the phone and just went like, yeah, we're bringing the women's team. Why wouldn't we? Because that was my take on it. My initial take wasn't, oh my God, let's jump to he's putting women down. After upon hearing it 2 or 3 times, yeah, okay. But that was my take. And then it came out with the White House situation. that they were invited. The women's team was also invited, but it was like a pity invite, it felt like at that point. And the women's team said, yeah, kick rocks. We're going to go to Vegas and we're going to party with Flavor Flav. That's what I would have chosen as well. That seems like more of a fun time than listening to an hour and 45-minute speech. But hey, different strokes for different folks. But if you want to go to the White House upon getting invited, you're allowed to go to the White House. Like, you got invited. And I think for a lot of us out there, we have strong political... If you're watching this video, you probably have strong political beliefs. If you were outraged, you probably have strong political beliefs. If you don't see the big deal of it and you're like rolling your eyes, like, you probably have strong political beliefs. We forget a lot of times that not everybody has strong political beliefs. For some people, they just go, oh, that's really cool, I can meet the president. And for some of these players who are younger, I feel like that probably is just the case. Jack Hughes is getting a lot of heat for his post thoughts when he was asked the question about, how they could have handled it. And he said, like, everything's politicized and, we're just proud to be Americans and we want to represent and blah, 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 blah. He's getting a lot of heat for that. He's 24 years old. His frontal cortex isn't even formed yet. And I can just tell you at 24, I wasn't deep into politics. Like, I didn't really care about the presidential nominations, Congress. I was more upset about the advertisements that would bombard you from, August to November. That was my big plight at the age of 24. I wasn't a professional athlete. I'm sure these guys have other issues going on. So when they're invited to the White House, they might not be looking at it as a political situation. They might be looking at it as a cool field trip that they never got to do because their field trips were going to, the National Prehistoric Museum or some shit like that. So I think that's a big part of it. I don't think everybody is as political as a lot of us. And they don't view this administration one way or the other. They are in the vanilla. Like, they're in the gray area. They're just there. And they don't understand that their decision and their actions by going, whether they like it or not, you are supporting the president and the administration, which is how a lot of people view it. They're looking at it as, I got invited to go to the White House, I'm going to go to the White House. And you know what? Well, again, like, that is their right. Like, I'm not looking at any of these guys as one way or the other. I'm just looking at it like, all right, that's unfortunate. Because I'm a huge UFC fan. Like, I watch if you follow this channel, like, I break down the cards and everything. I guess I've been desensitized to politics in sports, and especially Donald Trump in sports. Because every UFC pay-per-view, they just get on their knees for this guy. And it's not just the UFC. It's not just Dana White. It's not just we have to watch Donald Trump do entrances. It's also the athletes themselves. There hasn't been really one athlete to criticize Donald Trump. I got to the point where I was so weirded out by it. I actually texted a former UFC employee who was pretty high up, and I was like, are they told to not say anything? Because I just found it hard to believe nobody was against Donald Trump. And I was told emphatically, no, that's not the case. Like, they're allowed to say what they want. Nobody criticizes them. Okay, fine. But for me, in sports, I've just become desensitized. And I feel like that's another part of this argument that is being overlooked, is a lot of the people that are upset. This might be the first time you've ever watched hockey, like this Olympics. You might not be into hockey. You might not be that into sports, but what you are into is political views, politics, societal issues. Like, that might be your sports. That might be your arena. And you might not be desensitized to politics and sports. Now, both sides love to say, keep politics out of sports. I mean, all I heard from the right when the Colin Kaepernick situation was going on was keep politics out of sports, but then I'm boycotting the NFL. And I would always make the joke of, like, no one's thinking about the national anthem on 4th and 3 in the fourth quarter when you're down by 4 and you need a first down. Like, nobody. And no one's boycotting the NFL. Like, you're not a football fan if you're boycotting the NFL because a guy took a knee. But then those same people would go, oh, God, it's like it's each side. Each side loves to, like, they want to keep politics out of sports until it helps them and their situation. And in the terms of the Olympians, I think what's really hurt them, and I've heard it multiple times, and Jack Hughes started it off. I heard Vinny Trocheck say it. I heard, who else said it? A few other people said it, but I recently saw a thing on Twitter with Vinny Trocheck saying it. But it's like, oh, everything's politicized. Everything's politicized. oh, it's not that political. No, it is. Like, this is where the blame does come on the athlete. I'm not asking you to get on your knees and beg for forgiveness and say, oh my God, we were so wrong. How could we? Oh my God, please forgive us. Like, no, like, fuck you. You want a gold medal, talk your shit, do what you want. I get it. But don't try to spin this as it's not politicized. Like, don't try to spin this as you going to the White House is not a political action. Like, you can't be that dense. It is. You took a call from the President of the United States, one of the most divisive people in the world. Whether you like him or not, he's divisive. Like, there isn't a lot of gray area. And I just made the point of, like, some of these athletes might be in that small percentile that really don't care about politics, but the guy is divisive. So if you are a part of going to the White House and you are taking his calls and you're partying with Kash Patel, like, I hate to break it to you, like, it's become political. This isn't a situation of, like, you're partying with, Kash Patel on one side, and then the other side, you're partying with AOC. Like, that's not the case. You aligned yourself with one side of the aisle, and that's going to piss off 50% of the people in the country. And I think that is tone deaf by a lot of the American players. To go like, oh, it's not political, it's not political. It's not even that they don't, I need to correct myself. It's not even that they said it's not political. It's the fact that they are throwing the blame on people that are upset by saying everything's so politicized. I'm sorry, you got Tage Thompson at the White House wearing a MAGA hat. Like, you're sporting for pictures with the press secretary. Like, you kind of made it political. And I'm not asking you guys to skip the White House, but, like, make a better statement, I guess is my point, than, well, everything's, I can't believe this, everything's politicized, and we just wanted to go over there. That's fine, and you did that, and I was obviously thrilled and all of it. But to say the situation is, oh, everything's politicized, like, this wasn't, I think if they had just taken the phone call, it's one thing. It's everything. It's the combination of Kash Patel, the phone call, the insult, not standing up for it, as I made my point earlier, and then going to the White House, the majority of them. Like, that kind of makes it political in a lot of people's eyes. And for a lot of these athletes to throw it back, including Jack Hughes, and say everything's politicized and we don't, we're just Americans and blah, 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 blah. It's become that because of everything that's transpired. My favorite football team is the Philadelphia Eagles. In 2018, they won the Super Bowl. They refused to go to the White House, as did a lot of teams. They won again in 2024. They went to the White House. Now, it wasn't everybody. I mean, shit, half the players didn't go. Jalen Hurts was like, yeah, I'm busy. And they're like, we don't have a date. Yeah, I'm still busy. Like, you had 5 players from the American team not go. And they had various reasons why. But I think if you're on the left and you're waiting for a hockey player to stand up and go, damn it, this isn't right, and they're going to basically say what you're feeling, it's not happening. It's just not. These are athletes. This isn't, political C-SPAN, CNN, Fox News situation. And also, by the way, I don't even know if I want to hear from a lot of these athletes on politics, because how up to date on the situations are they, So I think in closing, could they have handled themselves better? Yeah, probably. I think there's a lot to do with the insult to the women's team, and I don't really believe that to be the case, meaning that the men's team was insulting of the women's team. I think if you're in the hockey community, you know how tight that community is. The men's team was at the women's games. They were supporting the women's team. They were in the village with the women's team. They were hanging out with the women's team a lot. They were very, very supportive of each other throughout the tournament. And I don't see a situation where the insult that is perceived was intentional by the men's side. Because I can tell you, as a guy that, and it's low level, but as a guy that plays hockey, like my one team, we have a girl on the team, and we're distraught when she can't make it because she's that good. I think game recognizes game, and I think the men's players do not look at the women's side as going like, shit, all right, that's cute, whatever. They won their little goal, it doesn't really matter. No, I think that they realize, like, these women are incredible athletes. If you're one of the women on that team, I can understand why you're upset by the comments. Like, you just peaked at your sport, you won a gold medal for your country, and then you've got the president throwing insults at you, I understand they're upset about what was said, but I do think that the men's response to it wasn't entirely. I think there was a lot of ignorance with it. Like I think that they just simply didn't know, or some of them didn't know. Some of them didn't know at the time the president was making a joke. Obviously, there were guys in the room that laughed about it. They knew. And that's not cool because, as I said, like that's pretty insulting. But I think there was probably a decent amount that after the fact they hopped on Twitter and went, oh, Jesus Christ. Because they just didn't realize the president was trying to make a sexist joke. I've kind of rambled on for 15 minutes, so usually this is the point where I'm like, let me know what you think in the comment section, and I only check comments if you're a channel member. Become a channel member to support the channel, blah, 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 blah. I'm actually not going to do that because when you talk politics, there's really no winning. You're either talking to the side you agree upon, and they all agree with you, and you're speaking to the choir, or you're pissing off everybody and you're an idiot. So I feel like I've tried as best I can to talk about both sides of the situation and play devil's advocate. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm thrilled that both the men's and women's team won gold medals. Like, both games are incredible. I still think that 3-on-3 to decide a gold medal is absolute horseshit, even though at the time I was like, this is going to definitely benefit Team USA. And it did, obviously. But I think a lot of the blowback that some of the players are receiving, you just need to remind yourself, like, your favorite athlete probably doesn't align with you politically. And, you know, that's okay. Because separating the art from the artist, I think at times is important. You don't really want to know what a lot of these guys politically think. Just use sports what it's supposed to be. Use sports as a distraction from the politics. Obviously, politics will always be in sports. You got the dipshits like Boomer Esiason, you know, crying about the one Olympian and, oh, she's beautiful, but, you know, I mean, shut up and blah, 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 blah. Like, there's a guy that he loves it when it benefits his side, but yet when it goes against him, he becomes a snowflake. Yeah, it's funny how that seems to work. But a lot of guys are like that. A lot, and I've worked with both sides. I've worked with some people that are really, really left, and I've worked with some people that are really, really right. And at the end of the day, it's always going to be go Birds.